Hey folks, Wausau Agate. So here we are at the Native American Museum in Bentonville, Arkansas. We're just outside, just getting ready to get started here. Pretty excited about this, so come on along with us. I also noticed something else is right outside here, they have an arrowhead hunt. I'll flip you around here and show you this. It's for kids and adults, I guess. Kids under 15 can collect all they want, or they can collect one, I think, and then anything over that is 50 cents an arrowhead or something like that. So they got a fun thing here for the kids also. I'll flip you around here and show you. And it's a whole bunch of flint they've hauled in here. It's pretty cool. Okay, so here's a sign right here, and dig at your own risk. But anyways, they got this. This is all flint here, and I guess there's arrowheads in it, and the kids can come around and go through this and look for arrowheads. I don't know how many's in there or not, but anyways, a bunch of flint. And if you don't find an arrowhead, I guess you could make your own. But pretty cool. We're fixing to head inside. Okay, so I was just kicking around here, playing around, and kicked the gravel over, and look what I found. I found an arrowhead. These are planted here, obviously, but still pretty cool for the kids to find and stuff. And we'll plant this one right back here and see if it grows. All right, we're heading inside. So here's the mammoth here, and this thing is gigantic. And I agree, we should bring these back for sure. Absolutely. This thing's enormous. If they bring the mammoth back, I'm traveling wherever it's at, anywhere in the world, so I can see it. Because this thing's awesome. Just huge. Here's some artifacts on the wall here. All kinds of cool stuff. Ooh, look at all the little bitty birdies. Some of those are probably 3/8 of an inch long, something like that. Very cool. Well, this is already a better start than what Spyro was for sure. All right, we'll move along here. They actually have they got a bison skull over here. Kind of like the one that I've got at home. Right here. Looks just about like it. Pretty cool. 5,000 years ago. They went extinct about 5,000 years ago. But I got one like that hanging on my wall at home. Pretty cool. All right, y'all check this out. Yeah. Look at all those drills. Very cool. Kenny knives. Vulgarities up there. There's a bunch of Jettas. Oh, here's some those are Edwards blades. Here's a bunch of corner tangs. Put my finger up here so you guys can size comparison. So that's my pointer finger, so you can kind of see how big those are. The big ones are probably 5 inches, something like that. Here's some eccentrics. I like that one right there. That's pretty cool. Frios. Castervilles. I like Castervilles. Covington knives. There's some Pedernales. cool. Scale horns, and boy, some of those are really, really finely made and tiny. I mean, they're tiny, tiny. Here's my finger compared to them. It's about this. That's about the size of your fingernail, pointer fingernail. Actually, it's smaller than that, but. Hair hay knives. Those are an interesting blades. They have that twist to them. Kind of like a Pandale.
Have you guys been in before or first time?
Montels.
First time? As I say, so we're donation based, so it's free and it's for everybody. That's how you approach going through the museum.
Some Marcos. Here's some paleo points. There's some Clovises in there.
Back out this way when you get done. Okay. There's audio guides up here if you need them. Otherwise, there's.
Okay. There's some harpoons, antler harpoons. Kirk corner notches, Kirk stem. At least. Oh, here's some Daltons.
Yeah.
That's a big old Dalton right there. That thing's probably 8 inches long.
At the Keokuk,
every bit of
when
it.
you demonstrated the atlatl, did the kids get to use it?
Yeah,
too?
Very nice.
Teach them how to use it.
Bentons.
See this? The theory of that atlatl, you notice that like throwing stick?
Very cool.
Throw that.
St. Charles dovetails.
It's like cutting your own foot. That's what gives it gives it a lot of velocity.
It hooks into the end of
It's really accurate.
thing, so it gives it.
There's some more corner tangs.
Yeah, see that?
That one on the right there is probably,
Is in here.
I don't know, maybe
When you knack a piece of flint, what you do, you take it.
maybe 2.5, 3 inches long, something like that. There's some little calf creeks.
And that's chip. It's sharp.
That cold water looks a little bit like a,
Surgery still uses this flint.
like a Beaver Lake, I think, is what it kind of looks like.
Which way do you go?
Yeah.
Oh, here's some Aftons. There's some actual Aftons. I've never seen one of those in person. That's cool. I was supposed to make one of those on video. I still haven't done it. I guess I still need to do that. They got a bunch of these displays here, and
Apparently I had just gone deep enough to uncover that layer. It was a big Indian.
artifacts all over the place. But they got a demonstration thing here that shows the rough cobble. Looks like some Burlington from local around here. And then the first stage, second stage, final preform, and on up to finished points. Very cool. That's some really, really nice discoidal stones. That's probably the nicest ones I've ever seen. Pretty nice. There's a stick ball rackets right there. Considered one of the first sports. I'll let you guys pause on that and read it if you want.
And the closest point is one that's really good. That was closest in Mexico.
That's cool. Here's some woodworking tools. They got some celts. There's some curve wheel knives. I've made several of those, and I found one Down there collecting flint down there. Here's some chipped axes. That's interesting. Very cool. Might have to make one of those. There's some variants in them Kerrville knives. There's some axes. That's a full grooved axe back there, it looks like. That's a big one there. They're splitting some wood with that dude. Polished axes. Double grooved axe. Cool. Now here's some hematite axes. This is found in northeast Texas. Very cool. Very cool. I'll tell you what, Spiral Mounds was lacking in artifacts, but this place most certainly is not. Oh, nice. Here's some pine trees. Yeah, there's some pine trees. Huh. Nice. Some more Pedernales. Pelican Lakes. Marins. Now there's an Owachita right there. I've made one of those before on video. Morris knives. There's some bone artifacts, hairpins. And here's some Flint hose. Those dudes are big too. That's big, real big. This one's probably 14 inches long. Something like that. They're pretty good size. There's a Shuma knife. It's a complete knife, hafted on, looks like a deer leg bone. Yeah, deer leg bone, and the point is attached to it with sinew and asphaltum. Very cool. So you see the knives we all make today, but I think a lot of their knives looked a lot like that. Sedalias. Here's some Sloan Daltons. Or a Sloan Dalton anyways. Scott's Bluffs. Lion Creek. I don't think I've even ever heard of that one. It's a bit like a Dalton.
10,000 years ago,
Yes, a Dalton culture was called a Lion Creek. I'll have to look that up.
and the human population
Never
during
looked
that
into
time.
that one.
It was the
There's some
beginning
turkey
of the
tails.
Archaic period.
Now look at this. Two-bellowed turkey tail. This blade right here is probably 14 inches long, something like that.
By eating a more diverse diet of
There's a couple of thieves. That middle one is pretty big. That's probably a 5.5 inch point at least. All right, now look at this.
smaller beings,
The Dalton cache.
as the deer became the hunted,
Look at those
larger
Daltons.
beings became extinct.
Those are all from Illinois.
As people spread out from North America, different
You guys
tool
can
forms had to be
read
created to
that.
adapt to the new environments and tasks at hand.
I should have brought my microphone, then you guys would be able to hear me better.
That putting serrations on knife edges made
Hopefully
them
this
more
sound's
accurate,
coming through.
a practice that we still use today.
Let's see here. Little River Cache. Now this came from, that's Novaculite. It appears, looks like all Novaculite. That biggest one in the middle is probably 6.5 inches. And
And sharp adze to hollow out the logs for
found in 1976 in McCurtain County, Oklahoma, which is where I live.
to travel the vast waterways in search of raw materials and to trade with other routes.
It's a little river type. Yep, and they're all made in Novaculite. Very cool. That middle one's got a pretty good twist to it. They apparently wasn't concerned with keeping her straight because it's pretty twisted. But then they didn't care. I think they were looking for utilitarian use. That's pretty neat. There's some pretty neat pipes. I hope well.
In the latter part of the archaic time period, people moved around less and were settling down with small, semi-permanent villages.
That's where the inspiration from Donald Duck came from. This is supposed to be a flying eagle. Okay, what do we got over here? There's some dead men's right there. Look how tiny they are. I mean, they're tiny. That one is maybe, it's less than a half inch, closer to 3/8. Tiny. Dixons. Apple Creeks. I was just looking at Apple Creeks just the other day, in fact. There's some Adinas. And Adina blades. Elko. Those Elkos look a little different than most of them you see made these days. Hope Wells. There's a big old Ross blade right there. That's a honker right there. Scale horn. Now what is this? Snake Town. Those are tiny. Here's my finger. Want to see how tiny it is? Those are tiny. Super, super narrow. That one's probably 3/8 wide and an inch and a half long, something like that, pretty close. Inch and 3/8. Snyder's. Salad saws. Wabessa. Here is some copper points that were part of the old copper complex. First to the people around the Great Lakes who made weapons and tools from copper, perhaps as early as 9,500 years ago. Cool. And this is things that they made. Copper points. Here's some really, really nice banner stones. Hey, now this is one of the things I came here to see. There is the actual real Sweetwater biface. There's only one guy that's been in modern times that's been able to even come close to reproducing that I know of, and that's Jason Newman. See how thin it is? Almost disappears when it goes through there. I've held the cast of that in my hand several times, and it is so incredibly thin. It is just incredible. I'll try to show you the size so you guys can read this if you want. It's 3/16 thick, 9 7/16 long, and 3 3/8 wide. He was hunting for rattlesnakes when he found it. That is just incredible. This was the main reason I wanted to come here, is to see this right here. Just incredible. Yep. It's really that thin. Okay. It's kind of dark in here. I'll probably have to mess with the lighting some, and hopefully you guys can hear me. I was in a big group of people earlier, so it was hard to talk over everybody and not disturb everyone, but there's a lot of different vessels here. Louisiana, Arkansas, Texas, Caddo jar back there. That dog effigy is pretty cool right there. Cupaw teapot. It's amazing that any of those things like this survived. It just absolutely amazes me. So fragile, and they just survived somehow. So this is talking about what they use for paint. Talking about open air fired their pottery and stuff, and how they made it. Very cool. Well, there's a frog effigy bowl that came from Arkansas. That's pretty cool. My wife would appreciate that because she's from Tlingit. She's from the Frog Clan, so she'll appreciate that. I don't have any pottery at all in my, other than some chips that Mike had given me for pottery. I'd like to add at least a piece of pottery to my collection. And then over here, what do we got right here? Here's some Gunthers. Very cool. Bunch of Gunther points. Some of them are pretty tiny. Some more pottery. This place just goes, you know, and they've got those drawers that pull out that's got just all kinds of artifacts in them. I mean, you go through this for hours. There's albas. I was actually looking at maybe making some albas. I've made a couple of them, but they're a tiny point. I like making those little ones. But they have them in Mississippian, archaic. I'll probably go through this drawer if I see anything super interesting. San Patrice's. That's cool. If I see anything super interesting in the drawers, then I'll bring you back. right. Here's some washitas. I made one of those. Can't remember if I made it on video not long ago or not, or if I, or what, but a bunch of little points, little talcos. But I've seen those washitas, and I like those. The notches are really high on most of them, like a third of the way up or something like that. Some of them as high as a half, but those are fun little points to make. There's a couple of hardaways. I like the base on those. They got that kind of a fishtail kind of tail on them. I really like that style point, and they're fun to make. But hardaways, that's one of my points I really like to make. And there's some Hillsborough points next to it, and heavy duties. And these drawers are just full of just beautiful artifacts. Okay, here's something that's interesting. This is a Merrill Mountain, and that's actually the point that I'm supposed to be making on the podcast that's coming up. So that's cool. There's the information on it. I'd say they're 2.5 inches long, something like that, 2 3/4, maybe not quite 3. One might be 3, but that's the point we're supposed to be making. It's going to be next month on the podcast. I'll be giving you guys more information on that. It'd be a remote podcast, and we'll both be making a point, the same point out of material, same material. Anyways, I'll let you guys know more about that when it gets a little closer. So I just noticed this. These little rabbit islands. I like the base that's on that. I've never actually heard of a rabbit island, so I need to look that one up too. But it's got that little stem that comes out the bottom, little pointed stem. The lighting is not that good in here, so I'll have to look it up. I can't tell whether or not it's beveled or bifacially sharpened or what, but very narrow, but a good looking point though. Might have to make one of those. Well, here's an abbey, a little smaller than abbeys that I normally make, or my preforms. That one there is only about 1.25 inches long, something like that. But there's an andice. The notches on that andice are probably 1 inch deep, something like that. Pretty close. Cool. There's some barbed Daltons. I just love them fishtail points. This is my favorite points, I think. I just love the fishtails. Doesn't matter which point it is. If it's got something that appears to be a fishtail. Yeah, I like those. Some Frios. Another fishtail type point, or what I call a fishtail type point. There's some first views. Gypsum Cave, I've made those before. There's some Yoders. Made them before too. Gary points, those look like they're all made out of Novaculite. Arkansas and East Oklahoma. So this is a monolithic axe, and it's carved from a single piece of stone. It's ground and shaped and polished. That's incredible. That took a lot of work to do that. Good night. Can you imagine putting all the work into that and then you break it? Well, it's found in Tennessee. Very cool. Here's another frog effigy pot. This room here is just full of pottery and things. Say hi. Look at this. Can you believe that survived? That is just unbelievable. That's where it was found, Lee County, Arkansas. And there's a copper spider gorget. This pottery just absolutely amazes me. I just can't believe that anything like this survived. For any period of time, much less 1,000, 2,000 years. Very cool. Cupolas like their dog effigies for sure. There's a turtle effigy bottle. I mean, you can tell some of these had some restoration done to them. That one's got some cracks in it that it looks like it was put back together, but still, I mean, to have all those parts there is just unbelievable. Look at that. That is one of the coolest pots I've ever seen. It's a tadpole effigy. I don't know if you can see the mouth on that thing. That is really, really cool. That's the one I want. Can you imagine the value on that? I don't know what it'd be, but it'd be just incredibly high, I would think. Thousands. Very neat. Well, look right here. Here's some Spyro. There's some Spyro stuff. Finally found some Spyro stuff. Those are Spyro Craig Mound 1933. Is the tribute points that I talked about in the last video. They were so incredibly thin and well made. The hardest thing about making one of those is making it that thin. I mean, you can make that point, obviously, but to make it as thin as they actually were, tough to do. You need a flint with lots and lots of tensile strength. Most of that looks like maybe a piece of Burlington or Keokuk. And the rest of it is, I'm not sure. So it says one person napped all of them. They figured one person napped all of them, and it was just for art's sake, not practical. So this guy really, that must have been his specialty, and that's how they ended up in a mound, just incredibly. But I had to come up here to this museum to see anything. I wish that the Spyro mounds had just something from there.
There's Spyro mounds here too.
Oh good, so there's some Spyro mounds over here too, some beads. So all this came out of the Spyro mounds, I guess. Polished shell beads. It's a wood mask. Ear spools. Big old giant shells. Those are big shells. I mean big. Some stone pipes. That's an effigy. That's a resting warrior effigy pot. You guys can pause on that and read it if you want.
58.
That's some of the looting by the Gola Mining Company. Incredible. Those shells are just incredible. And those shells were traded all the way from the southern tip of Florida and brought there, which is amazing also, because someone had to carry those things there all that ways, and that's a good long ways. There's some Caddo pottery. Clark County, Arkansas. Ear spools and gorget pendants. Mississippian. There's a cat serpent effigy bottle. Now that duck's got a turtle on his back. That's cool. Very cool. And this just keeps going on and on and on and on. Horned owl effigy pots. Oh, now that's cool. I like these oddball ones, like this raccoon effigy pot. That's pretty cool right there. Maybe that's the one I'd like to have. Very neat. Now there's a hafted adze. See how small the adze is.
68.
Just shoots knife from California. Something I've noticed about a lot of these artifacts is a lot of them have pretty good twist in them, especially the knives. I mean, they weren't worried about keeping them straight. They're pretty twisted. Not all of them, but a lot of them were. And here's some head pots. I don't know if I'd want that staring at me every day. I think I'd stick with the raccoon. This guy's just spinning forever. You imagine the person that made that. I wonder what they'd think if you could bring him back and show them where it's at now. Pretty crazy. Face of the past. Yeah. Very cool. All right, now we're getting into something here. Yeah. Boy, look at this. Look at these Aggies. Aggies. So, let's say the second one in from the left on the top. That point is maybe 3/4 of an inch long and a little over. It's better than a quarter wide, but not much. Those things are absolutely tiny. Super, super delicate. Unbelievable. Here's some bone fish hooks. You guys know I like all these little bitty points. Duck River sword. Cool, here's some pendants. They're teeth pendants. That's kind of cool. There's some more haze points. Wish the lighting was a little better in here. I don't have all that much interest in those, but I do have these. These are Mayan eccentrics. Look at this. Those are pretty big pieces too. That little snake eccentric right there, if that's what it is, that's probably 6 inches, 7 inches long probably, something like that. They got scorpion effigies. All kinds of stuff. Just crazy little doodles. Quite a few scorpions though. Which is pretty cool. There's some Mayan blades. Guatemala and Mexico. Pretty interesting how those were manufactured. I got a teepee set up here going into the next room. There's some more pots over here from South America. Pretty elaborate stuff. There's a Chihuahua from Mexico. I don't know where it's from. I don't know what it is. Yep, they're from Mexico. That must be a Chihuahua. Maybe they're all Chihuahuas. They look like Chihuahuas. Well, that's a pig. Looks like a pig, I guess. But those look like Chihuahuas. Mexican Chihuahua dogs. Jaguar effigy pots. Birds. Fat Chihuahua. Party cool. Okay, we're gonna go through the teepee here. Alright, so we're inside the teepee and they just got some things set up in here. Snowshoes. It says don't touch any of this stuff. That looks like it's probably a pretty cool quiver made out of a coyote skin. There's a garment covered in shells. There's a quiver right there. Got some arrows in it. There's a bow there. Let's see here. What do we got going on in here? Got some rugs. Tapestries of some sort or another. Well, what is this here? That's a bison hide. So it's got all kinds of different symbols here. and what the different symbols are. I'm not sure that I can get a picture of all that, but it's all these different symbols. So you look at all these symbols, and you can look on the bison hide and figure out what they were putting down there. It's kind of a way of keeping history, I guess. That's an old hide. That's not something that's new. Here's the let you guys read that. So this is showing some early trade commerce items, and that's a pipe tomahawk. That's cool. Circa 1800s. An offering pipe. Dutch glass bottles. I'd nap that. There's another pipe tomahawk. He's got some, there's amazing craftsmanship in that thing. I don't know if you guys can tell how amazing the craftsmanship is in this tomahawk, but it's pretty incredible. It's a beautiful, beautiful piece. Cherokee child's jacket. $1890 to $1920. Donated by Sam Johnson. Now these are Cherokee blowguns. So these long ones that you see here, and they're probably 7 feet. But those are Cherokee blowguns. Wood and trade paint. Cool. It looks like they were put together in 2 pieces. I see a joint right in the middle there, where apparently they're put together in 2 pieces and joined together with a sleeve and some binding, it looks like. And then the mouthpiece is also a separate piece, which is put on and bound. Interesting. You can see the joint right here where they're put together. That's cool. You know, the one thing I have not seen here is anything Alaskan. Look at that. It's a moose hide garment. That is incredibly preserved. Made in 1800 to 1840. Soft tan moose hide. Let me see if I can zoom in on it so you guys can see. These things I'm zooming in on, hopefully you guys can pause it and read it so you can get an idea. But this thing, that had to have been just put away in a chest somewhere and to survive all these years. I mean, that coat's over 200 years old, you know. Pretty incredible. This was 1870 to 1875. It's a canvas shirt. Zoom in on that. Should have zoomed in on it earlier. You guys can read through the shine on the thing there. The scalp locks are missing, I guess. Some of them are missing. So apparently he hung scalps off that. Oh, that one right there. It's got that raven head on it. That's Blackfoot medicine pipe. That's cool right there. Yeah. It's got a raven's beak. It's got a raven's head, and they got beads for his eyes. That's really cool. Those are actually pipe bags. So they had special bags they kept their pipes in. Some more tomahawk pipes. Well, there's an Inuit kayak. There's an Alaskan doll, so there's a couple Alaskan things here. Not much though. Circa 1910. Look at all the grizzly bear claws. That was a necklace. It's got river otter down the back. That'd go over your head, and then the river otter would be running down your back. That thing is pretty cool. There's a lot of grizzly bear claws on there. Those are all front claws, so front claws are much longer on a grizzly bear. And there's I would say there's 4 bears, no, at least 2 bears there. I didn't count them all, but somewhere around 2 or more. All right, now this is pretty cool. There's a child's bow set. With some little short arrows, no points on them. A little short bow. That bow's probably maybe 3 feet long, something like that. And here's some authentic bows. There's not a great way to show these on here, but North Dakota, South Dakota, Southeast US, Maine, all kinds of bows. Most of them are pretty long. That Plains bow is probably the shortest one, and it's really not that short. So here's a bunch of medicinal herbs. And the different things that they used them for. Here's some Alaska stuff here. Looks like a Hudson Bay blanket. And it's a potlatch cap. They wear that when they're dancing at the potlatch, which is after 1 year it's a celebration of life kind of thing. Anyways, and that's actually, believe it or not, that thing that's that big right there is probably 12-14 inches long, but that's a halibut hook, a blanket halibut hook. Which is pretty cool. Here's another one right here. Eskimo sunglasses. There's another hook. Well, folks, that's it. We went through the whole thing, and I could spend hours more in there staring at arrowheads and studying them, but it didn't disappoint. This place is awesome. If you guys ever get a chance to come to Bentonville, Arkansas, and come to the Museum of Native American History, you won't be disappointed. It's fantastic. It really is. It's a pretty neat place. Pretty neat, and I'll probably be back again. And the highlight for me was probably the Sweetwater biface, of course. I don't know why us snappers have an obsession with that. I guess because it's impossible, but pretty incredible. And I was glad I got to see some Spyro artifacts. I was so bummed out yesterday when there wasn't any artifacts there to speak of at all. There was a canoe there, wooden canoe, which that was cool, and a pot that got donated back. But that was pretty much it. That's all that was there. And then, I mean, it could have been great because they had the signage and stuff, you know. You could have read more, but then the signage was faded out. But this place made up for it 100%. Very cool. I believe this is the largest one in the country. I suppose maybe you go to the Smithsonian or something like that, then they got more. I don't know. But anyways, this is definitely worth a stop if you're ever here in this part of the country. I'm going to be back up here in about a month for the Water Creek Napian. It's up in this area. Yellville, Arkansas, that's coming up. I'm planning on being there. But yeah, pretty neat. If you ever get a chance to come up here, come on up. And I appreciate y'all watching, and I'll put this together and we'll catch you on the next one. And that woolly mammoth mastodon in there is flipping awesome. I hope they bring them back. I don't care, all you naysayers out there whining and crying about bringing back the woolly mammoth. Whatever. I want to see a woolly mammoth. It's not like it's a T-Rex. Not gonna eat you. Might step on you, but I mean, the only thing better than an elephant is a hairy elephant. So yeah, let's bring them back. All right, y'all. We'll catch you on the next one. Y'all keep napping.